problem with Hollywood is? They make shit. Unbelievable and remarkable shit. Now, I'm not some grungy wannabe filmmaker searching for existentialism through a haze of bong smoke. No, it's easy to pick apart bad acting, short-sighted directing, and a purely moronic stringing together of words many of the studios term as prose. No, I'm talking about realism. Realism. Not a pervasive element in today's modern cinematic vision. It's the opening lines from Swordfish 2001, some of Travolta's best work, aside obviously from Saturday Night Fever. All right, I'm going to talk about Longlegs. Just came out, 2024, written and directed by Oz Perkins, and it's produced by Neon. And we'll get into the conventions, evaluations, technical analysis here. Just before we start to break it down, as always, spoilers ahead, including theories. But if you like Silence of the Lambs, go see this one. It's very, very similar, but only in the sense that it rhymes and does not copy, duplicate, or seek to imitate anything else that's gone before. It's really a good version of a proven formula. Fascinating what they've done here with this recipe at a very economic product. Budget is estimated under $10 million with an all-in budget of under $20 million. So less than $10 million to make the movie, less than $10 million to advertise the movie. They used some guerrilla tactics, which I missed out on seeing how they did it, but they released some newspaper ads that were reminiscent of the Zodiac Killer's cryptic messages. And that was some of the early buzz that created the results financially for the studio. As of July 21st, it's raked in over $50 million. So it's pushing a profit. I think it's Nicolas Cage's highest grossing opening since one of the Ghost Rider movies. It's outstanding results. Breaking down our scorecard, suspension of disbelief. The movie is a little unique in the sense that it pivots from kind of a crime drama thriller into supernatural thriller. And the more that I thought about this, it gets scarier if you think about it in terms of being more realistic. And I think what they've done, at least the way that I'm able to interpret it, is I can look back on it and come out with a formula that makes this film far more plausible and realistic. And if you see it that way, it makes it, as I said, scary. The best example of fantastic execution of this principle is Heath Ledger's Joker. There's a point in The Dark Knight where you realize the Joker is portrayed as a truly insane person whose only motivations are destruction and chaos, and these are things that are fun. And then you combine over that a layer that he is also self-destructive and has no concern for his own personal safety. And there are people like that in the world, and they're very bad people, and they are the most dangerous people. If you want to inflict the most damage on a particular person or institution, the way to accomplish that goal, that dark, dark goal, is to be willing to give your life. And so the realism behind that finds its way into the particular interpretation that I've applied to this film that makes it makes it far scarier. So the way I see it, we're going to dance with the supernatural, but there's a way to watch this that tightly ties it to the realm of reality and by the end of the movie, see that maybe everything's not mystical here. Much of this is tied to reality. So I'll come back to that as I get into the plot devices and subplots and so forth. Looking at the genre, as I said, it's a bit supernatural. The primary flywheel of this movie is that it's a thriller. As I said, very similar kind of theme to Silence of the Lambs, but it has steady, constant occult and overt satanic undertones, and a minimalist horror approach that just weaves things like scary dolls and imagery and self-deletion, I believe, is the way to describe what happens to one character, the way YouTube will allow me to say it. Someone self-deletes. So, broad brush, supernatural thriller, crime mystery. But as is typical for the genre, you cannot really follow the mystery. You can't solve it yourself. And I don't even try. I've talked to some people that did not like the movie. And one of the reasons was that they had figured it out. And I thought, well, it wasn't clear, but you can make guesses. And I find that I'm far less happy watching movies when I do that. You're just going to strap yourself in and go along for the ride. And so, for me, the main character is able to work on this particular case and follow it in a way that includes clairvoyance and the supernatural. However, perhaps it's not clairvoyance entirely, and perhaps it's not entirely supernatural, and there's a reason why perhaps she's the only one that's able to solve the mystery, and the reason is she's part of it. So again, I'll come back to that in a minute too, but that's the flywheel. The genre is they've really carved out a really unique niche here that it just seems really fun. It's creatively unique. It's very, very nice. Very, very, very nicely done. The primary plot devices and the storytelling elements are also terrific. I mean, it's a big surprise how enjoyable this was. So just the main story is the investigation of a serial killer, and we follow Agent Lee Harker as she works her way through this hunt for this satanic serial killer, and she is able to figure out that there's a schedule that this killer has used for decades that revolves around the victims' birthdays when they're 9 years old. And the thing that they all have in common is that they all are born on the 14th day of the month. And so she kind of puts this into a map and a calendar of days and is able to symbolically draw some satanic imagery, and she can predict when the next person is going to be murdered. And I guess the potential undertone, they don't really specifically say it in the movie, but all these victims are killed on or around their 9th birthday, within a few days of their 9th birthday. 9 being some satanic symbolism for numerology, or it's never really overtly explained, but I think that's a detail they didn't miss. I don't think that's accidental. They picked that number. So eventually Agent Harker remembers that when she was 9, she might have actually met the serial killer, but yet he didn't kill her. And so this is, part of what begins to unravel as she starts to dig into her own maybe suppressed memories. And thinking about the idea that she may have suppressed some of these childhood trauma makes it possible for me to eliminate a lot of the possible supernatural here. Because we see her, prior to getting involved in this investigation, we see her using some apparent clairvoyance and predictive capabilities, and so the FBI, they're very interested in her, additional supernatural abilities, but maybe it's not that at all. Maybe Maybe she just has an enhanced suspicion because of the trauma. Maybe she's just been lucky at being suspicious up to this point. And that makes it more realistic and just personal theory. But that makes it more real, less magical, and more dangerous and scary from a position of enjoyable suspension of disbelief. So, breaking down the cast of characters, the development and subplots, pretty simple formula here with a protagonist and two antagonists. So our main hero, our heroine protagonist, is played by Maika Monroe, FBI agent Lee Harker. Nicolas Cage plays our primary antagonist, the serial killer Longlegs. And I love Nicolas Cage. Watching his stuff, if I go all the way back to watching him on HBO as a kid when Valley Girl came out on HBO, and I know he's made a lot of good stuff, bad stuff, everything in between, but man, this guy has got a work ethic second to none, and I love him. He's fantastic. I've also known some people that were involved in charities that he was involved in, and the cat is generous. So, love him or hate him, I could care less what you think about him. He's a rock solid guy. The part of the formula here with a primary hero and villain is that up until about the third act of the movie, we don't learn that there's a secondary antagonist. So there's actually the serial killer has an accomplice. She's played by Alicia Witt, and that is Agent Harker's mother. The remaining supporting cast is just the typical backdrop characters you see in any kind of crime drama, thriller, etc. So there's a staff at the FBI. Agent Harker reports to people. She works with people. There's partners. They do stuff that's just there. We don't have a ton of time developing them. We don't need that. All of this is executed well and just falls right into place. It doesn't stand out as exceptionally important. None of these particular characters have any unusual flaws, and they don't really play any high virtue elements into the story. And this is a little bit unique from Silence of the Lambs, because if you remember, in Silence of the Lambs, Clarice is being manipulated and used by the FBI because we have management at the FBI that wants to use her to get to Hannibal Lecter to further their own management careers. And then when she gets involved with the psychiatric people that have oversight into Hannibal Lecter, they also want to use her as a way to get into the mind of the monster. So we don't have any of that here, and I think that's very important for the pacing of the movie, because by skipping those other plot devices of developing the subplot of the secondary characters and just knowing that they're there and them being very familiar, and by not having them play, interwoven portions of the story, allows the movie to run at a faster pace. And that is important here because they're using an interesting combination of a shorter runtime, about 101 minutes, in conjunction with trying to have a very slow burn, but actually a minimalist horror approach. So the thematic use of pacing slowly adds to the potential suspense that you experience. And so it's a difficult balance, because if you developed any of the other potential plots you could have taken, you're going to be dragging and you're going to force a longer runtime, and it's just going to create tension and pacing exhaustion. So we don't need that kind of foundation that Silence of the Lambs built. We don't get it, and it's fantastic. But the hidden tide underneath the waves and the subplot of Longlegs is far more straightforward. Now, it is a little concealed with our hidden antagonist. The accomplice is not revealed until much later in the movie, but that really kicks the whole investigation to a whole nother level. Pacing, editing, and cinematography is, I think, what takes this movie from a good movie to a truly exceptional movie. because it's a slow burn, as I said. The goal here is to build suspense, and it's scary because of the cinematography, not because of the content. There is a little bit of gore, but there is not excessive gore. It's rated R, it's a solid R rating, but there's no unnecessary excessive violence, gore, bloodshed. This is not a horror film for the sake of being a horror film. This is a psychological thriller, a supernatural thriller, a crime investigation, and it's really just to say minimalist horror is just not enough. It's so much more. The movie really works well if you don't try to figure it out. The opening sequence itself is brief, short, and set in the 1970s, and it is damn scary. So it's easy in the first 5 or 10 minutes to have the expectation set that this is going to be a terrifying movie. It is not. It's not that genre. It does remind me of some of the realism that the Blair Witch Project was able to achieve. I'm sorry if you didn't get to see that in the theater. You just had to be old enough to see it. But there's elements in the beginning of this movie where you see Agent Harker as a child, and she meets the serial killer Longlegs in the 70s. And she looks one way, and there's nothing there. She looks another way, and then she looks back, and then bam, he's right there in front of her. Except you only see the serial killer, from like here down, with the perception being that what's on the screen is what the child is seeing. And at that point, with the view from here down, he bends into the view and starts to speak to her. And Nicolas Cage just knocks it out of the park. He knocks the skin off the baseball. He is so amazing, and has apparently vowed to never play another serial killer, much to the disdain of everyone that will love this movie. So the way that this opening sequence is shot is amazing, because it doesn't require any special effects investment to achieve this, and it is scary. So it's the similar kind of thing in Blair Witch Project, the way that they used the perspective of the kids in the woods at dark, where the camera goes dark, the theater goes dark, and you experience the fear of what might be out there. Similar scene is found in Angel Studios' movie Sound of Freedom, where we've got a rescue sequence where the protagonist there goes to rescue a child who's about to be assaulted, and you see the camera is showing the child's perspective looking up from a bed where she's been about to be violated, and her abuser is over her, and you see behind him the hero about to attack him. And the hero basically just says, close your eyes. And then the camera drops and everything goes dark to symbolize that the child has closed their eyes and can't see what's about to happen. So all of the action happens in a dark theater, which is, again, brilliant cinematography. And this application here with Cage is, again, it rhymes. It rhymes with that philosophy that went before, but it's unique and powerful. So, trying to land the plane here with some final comments and conclusion. Nicolas Cage deserves an Oscar for the role. The introduction and opening sequence is pure perfection. His physicality, his depiction is a masterclass in creativity. Master thespian. His presence is unlike any other depiction. It's better to see it and be able to focus on it rather than You know, I can only imagine the living room view is going to take a lot away from this. Some people don't like that, but I get it. This kind of project really subverts a lot of expectations for the genre, but to me it's exactly what makes it a win, and it carves out a very, very unique space. So I hope you go see it. I hope you enjoy it, and you know, thanks a bunch.